Empire State Buildings. But announcement today that work will get underway. This did hit a part of the building that had just been refurbished using some up-to-date fire-resistant and blast-resistant materials, and they said that went a long way to keeping the death toll down. The death toll now about 125 people in the building plus the 64 on the plane. But again, an announcement today that work will be getting underway very soon, as soon as they've completed the task of recovering all the possible remains, to begin rebuilding the Pentagon and get it occupied again as soon as possible. Judy?
All right, Jamie McIntyre bringing us the latest from the Pentagon. Now, Aaron, back to you.
Thank you. I believe this is going to work now. We're joined from Reno, Nevada, with retired Marine Corps General Martin Bragner. General Bragner is here to talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that are facing the President, his military planners, and soldiers on the ground as well, as they begin a process of trying to figure out who is responsible for this and what to do about it. General Bragner, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Aaron.
Look, I'm no military mind here, but the first problem seems to me, it's not like we know where the enemy is in a sense. There's not some big army. We can get a satellite picture of them, see them staging and all of that. So one assumes the first thing is, how do you find them?
Well, it's, of course, extremely complex problem, and it's intelligence dependent. I am certain that right now the military planners are looking over all the information they could possibly acquire from a host of sources in order for them to better identify the attackers, where they're located, who is harboring them, who is supporting them. And I'm certain that they're going to discover that, and they already know this, that they are in a wide variety of places, not just one location, and that this kind of an attack was obviously carried out by a host of cells in various parts of the world.
So you're in reducing this to a perhaps too terribly simple way. You're not talking about a shotgun approach where you can go in and drop lots of bombs over a wide area. You really need a kind of a pistol approach where you find a target and go get them.
I think that's right. You know, there's a thought that the President has made clear, and that is that we are going to hold nations responsible for those who harbor and support these terrorists. But to actually get the terrorist cells themselves and break them down and destroy them, it's going to have to be very pinpoint and very accurate, and done in a manner that will ensure that these cells are in fact destroyed, along with the network that supports them. This is not a very short-term project, obviously.
I want to talk about that broader military problem in a second, but let me just, if I can, ask a couple more questions about the more surgical aspect of this. Are there military units, Marine, Army, whatever, that are trained to perform those kinds of actions?
Yes, there are. Both the Army and the Marine Corps have units that are capable of special operations. Highly risky. I suspect that there would be a very significant amount of intelligence gathering done before any kind of an operation like that would be launched. But yes, the capability does exist.
And have we had much success with these sort of operations in the past?
Well, we've had success on limited times that are not very well publicized. Of course, you look back to Desert One, which was a terrible disaster, and that was really the genesis of all these special operations forces.
Just for people who don't remember, Desert One was, if I'm wrong, jump in here, but was the effort to rescue the Iranian hostages, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
And that was a disaster on the ground.
It was.
Yeah. And then there was the attempt to get Gaddafi a decade, a little less than that ago, and that didn't precisely work either, did it?
Well, the end result of that particular effort, however, did come about that Gaddafi has essentially been put out of work and has kind of hunkered down. So I think you can say that that particular effort did result in a desired outcome.
But at best, we've had a mixed record in these kinds of operations. The military is much more comfortable in a more classic battle.
Well, I would say that right now the special operations forces we have are extremely competent. I worked with them. I know how good they are, and I have every confidence that if they were ever called upon to exercise their mission, they would do it in a very professional way. And they did, of course, do a variety of things during the Gulf War, and they were very, very successful at that.
Right, and I wouldn't suggest for a minute that they weren't professional. I merely suggest this is very hard to do well and successfully. It had a lot of risks, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of things that can go wrong.
Oh, absolutely, and that's why I think you'll find that before any kind of an operation of that nature is conducted, that there will be very, very careful planning, a very substantial gathering of intelligence to eliminate as great as possible the margin of error.
We have grown as a country, the United States, used to these air wars where you could keep ground soldiers out of harm's way and you drop some bombs and hope that works. The end result of this is more complicated, isn't it? I mean, if you go after governments, do you see this as simply an air war?
No, I don't. I think one is that you have air power, which is very capable. It's going to be mixed with a variety of other kinds of actions, and I cross the spectrum of economic sanctions, embargoes, forming alliances that will act in concert against these countries, and as well as military action. So it's going to be long range. It's going to be very, very complicated. I think you'll find that the military activities that occur are going to be selective. They'll be very aggressive and probably in some cases massive. But I think you're going to find that it's going to be a longer term, very carefully orchestrated effort on a magnitude that we have not seen before.
Which raises a whole different set of questions which we'll get to in the days ahead. General Bradner, thanks for joining us. Martin Bradner, retired Marine Corps General, joining us this afternoon from Reno, Nevada. Thank you, sir. It's nice to talk to you. To Atlanta, Darren.
Aaron, thank you very much. We're going to keep it on the military theme here and talk about military reservists. As you probably know, President Bush has given the authority to call up as many as 50,000 reserves to active duty, and already many reservists have volunteered to join that effort. So far, apparently there's requirements for 35,000 reservists, including 10,000 from the Army. Turns out our Leon Harris is at Rangers Joe Army and Navy store. That is in front of Fort Benning, Georgia. He has more reaction to Tuesday's attacks and, even more importantly, what lies ahead. Leon, hello.
Hi, Darren. Good to see you. Good, nice to hear your voice. And you're not going to believe that some of the comments that we've been getting from people here, even just moments ago, it's not just the reservists who are getting all fired up right now. We've seen come in here probably 10 disabled ex-veterans, disabled veterans, or those who were formerly in the military. And do you know what they've been telling us to a man? That they would give up their 100% disabilities to get back in, to get a chance to go over and do something. That kind of sentiment is really coming up to the surface around here. We're standing in front of a place, Ranger Joe's, which is a really unusual place. They've got pretty much anything that you could imagine buying that's related to the military. We've seen civilians and enlisted men alike coming in here, men and women, I should say, coming in here and buying things from, we've seen gas masks being sold, we've seen you name it. They've been looking for mirrors to search under vehicles. We've seen all kinds of gun paraphernalia, uniforms. But you know what the hottest selling commodity here today was? United States flags, the stars and bars. They came in here this morning, and people were here lined up around 8:30 this morning trying to buy some. The place was sold out. They didn't even open up until 9. They said the first shipment they would get in, and maybe the only one they'd get in, would be around 1 o'clock. You know what happened? The place was jam-packed. It took the driver 8 hours to make the run into Alabama to get the flags, and when they came back in, they were gone in 90 seconds. We sat here and counted it. It was an unbelievable scene. But you know what? While we were sitting here listening to the hubbub there as people were scrambling, and very politely so, over those flags, it seemed as though we detected a shift in the sentiment that people were expressing. They've gone from handling their grief to trying to get ready to dish some out on their own.
Well, it's, I think, our biggest chance to prove what we really got, you know, give them all we can. And I think payback's in order. And they're going to pay.
They've got haircuts they're giving here in the back while guys are getting their uniforms pressed. But right next door is Tattoo Tommy's. And we counted more than a handful of guys who've gone in there feeling that now is the time to express their patriotism by getting tattoos. We've seen eagles and flags and you name it. And there's been no shortage of guys going in there who have personal connections to the tragedies in Washington and in New York. And on a final note, you know what else I just learned they have been selling out of today, in addition to the flags? The little black bands that officers have been wearing in honor to commemorate those of their comrades who have fallen in this tragedy. They're all sold out of those as well, sad to say. Darren, back to you.
Leon, on the equipment that people are buying, is it because they're just trying to get in the spirit, or you think they're really getting ready because you think that they're soldiers who are ready to head out?
Well, you know what? The soldiers have been instructed to not talk to us. And it's not because they've got a problem with CNN or anything specifically. It's because they don't want to give away anything. They don't want to give away just how prepared they really are. But off the record, off camera, they've all told us that they are really taking this very, very seriously, and they're going through every step. They want to make sure that they've got every single thing that they need down to the last item, and that's why we've seen, I mean, this parking lot, as you can probably see over here, you may not be able to see, has been jam-packed all day from guys coming in and girding themselves up and getting ready for whatever is to come.
Understandable. Leon Harris at Fort Benning, Georgia. Leon, thank you. And now we go back up to Washington, D.C. and Judy.
Well, Darren, air travel is something we're all watching. Slowly, it is returning to normal across the country. Boston's Logan International Airport reopened today. That's the first time since Tuesday's attack. And, of course, that was where 2 of the 4 flights that were hijacked originated from. This morning, this very morning, a man was pulled off of a flight at Logan that was headed to Atlanta. And he was, it was described, he was engaging in suspicious and rowdy behavior. Now, all 3 of New York City's major airports are now open, but under tighter security. Out in Los Angeles, at International Airport there, expects to be running at 25% capacity, they tell us today. That would be the equivalent of about 500 flights. Here in Washington, our Washington Reagan Airport is the only airport in the country that remains completely closed. Some activity out there right now. For that, let's go to Kathleen Koch. Kathleen, what's going on?
Well, Judy, the Department of Transportation made a decision late this afternoon to begin to allow those aircraft that were stranded here Tuesday to get back into circulation. So at 4 p.m., they opened this airport for flight crews only to board the 42 commercial aircraft, the 12 air taxis, and the 70 general aviation aircraft that were stuck here. Allow the flight crews to begin boarding those aircraft and getting them up into the air. So between 4 and 7 this evening, this airport is open for those flights to go out. Also between 10 and 4 tomorrow and Monday. An interesting note, Judy, though, we are not seeing any of these aircraft take off to the north toward the city. Of course, this airport is just across the Potomac River from Washington, D.C., and that is one of the reasons that the Federal Aviation Administration has temporarily closed it down, temporarily and indefinitely, because with aircraft taking off and landing here at speeds of 140 to 150 miles an hour, pilots tell us that in less than in a minute, one of these aircraft could veer off into the White House, the Pentagon, and there would be little that anyone could do about it. Judy?
All right, Kathleen Koch bringing us up to date on the very latest at Reagan National here in Washington. Thanks, Kathleen. And now to Aaron in New York.
Thank you, Judy. One of the great joys of flying in and out of Washington is flying out of National and seeing the Capitol. I don't suppose any of us will look at that quite the same again. Just as we're learning more about the people who hijacked the plane and their lives and what they had been up to the last several years, we're also learning more about the passengers who were on those planes and their lives. In this case, a story about someone on board American Airlines Flight 11, which crashed into the World Trade Center on Tuesday. Your CNN correspondent Ann McDermott.
This is supposed to be such a happy time for Kelly Lee. She's just had a baby, her second little girl. But just 2 days before the birth of Allison Danielle, Kelly's husband Dan was killed. He was on board American Airlines Flight 11 on Tuesday morning.
This doesn't seem possible or believable yet to me, so I just keep expecting him to come back or walk in the door and be here at some point. You know.
Dan was a stage carpenter for the Backstreet Boys and left the tour in Boston to come home for the birth of his baby.
He called at 2 a.m. that morning, his time in Boston, and he just said, you know, he'd be home soon, and he loved us.
Later that morning, when Kelly saw that all hell was breaking loose in Manhattan, she called her family. She called Dan's friends.
Because we kept hoping Tuesday that he'd missed his flight. He overslept her because he'd only had like 3 hours sleep before the flight. And they said all he could talk about was how happy he was to come home. So they knew he'd be on it.
And he was. And now his oldest daughter keeps breaking Kelly's heart over and over again. She's been told her daddy is dead, but she doesn't know what that means.
She keeps telling me he'll be back in 5 minutes. He'll, don't. She's asked to call him and tell him she loved him on the phone.